Brian, man, glad to be with you.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Dude, so I have this memory of you and I driving in your Jeep
Yes.
in the Orange Groves.
Well, first, you came over to my house,
I did.
and I was like, hey, I got a new Jeep. I was really excited about it.
So tell us about the Jeep. What kind of Jeep
yes, I
was
would
it?
love to tell you about the Jeep.
And also just tell us about all your other cars, by the way, because you've had some cars over the years.
Okay, so we'll just run into this.
Yeah.
I had a Volkswagen Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
I know all about the thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was a 73.
Mm-hmm.
I forget which one. I think 73. There's a way you can tell the difference between a 73 and a 74. That's all. That's all we have in the
It's
U.S.
only 2 years of the
2
thing.
years. I was driving it one day, and I was like, I don't want to drive a thing. Like, why am I doing this?
Why do I need
I don't
this?
know why I got it.
Wasn't it orange? Do I have that right?
White.
Oh, it's
straight
white. That's right. That's right.
Anyway, then I realized I could sell this for like more than I got it for. I don't know. So I did, and then I got a Jeep. It's like this is my dream car,
Yeah.
and it was like an old '97
Yeah.
Jeep. It was lifted.
Is it a Wrangler?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And some guy was trying to get rid of it, and it was way more than I knew what to do with.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm really risk averse. So I had this thing that I could like rock crawl with, but I like was scared of doing
Never
anything
did
like
it.
that. So I think I hit gravel parking lots like crazy. You know, I was
Donuts.
like, yeah, solid on those. Anyway, I was like, hey, I just got this.
Yeah.
Come take a ride. So
Yeah.
you did, and I just thought we were hanging out.
Yeah, so it was one of those like, we need to talk.
Yeah.
But I didn't say anything else.
You looked like you needed to talk.
I probably
Yeah.
looked like I needed
You
to
drove out. Where were you living at the time? You were in
I think I was living in Huntington Beach.
Yeah.
And I was driving to your house in a Ford Explorer, also affectionately known as the Ford Exploder.
Yeah.
1998 two-door.
Okay.
And it exploded.
Right. Same
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
Similar.
same years.
Yeah.
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 But my Ford wouldn't have made it. So we hop into your Jeep, and we start driving to the Orange Groves. We got to talk. Do you remember what I said to you?
I feel like it was I have an idea or there's something I want to. I think you asked, "What are you working on?"
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I remember
Yeah.
it. You said, "What are you working on?"
Yeah, that's it.
Is that?
Yeah, no, we literally haven't talked about this in like 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I came to you and I said, so like, what's going on? Like, what are you working on right now?
Yeah.
And
Because you were being polite.
I was being polite.
You had
right?
something you wanted to say.
Before I share my thing, I should ask something about you.
Yeah.
And then you share like 3 things that
Yeah.
you're trying to work on. Do you
It's
remember
like
those?
Yeah, I had this concept of a 3-legged stool
Yeah.
for training.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted something that would galvanize training for, and the second one had to do with training. I don't exactly remember. There were 2 things that I think one was providing training, and the second one was developing support base for people who were doing ministry. So the training was revolving around ministry and really for the goal of reaching the nations, right? Like raising up disciples who can make disciples to reach the nations. So I saw the need for training. I saw the need to raise up more laborers. And I had actually like started the process of a 501c3. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I can.
You know you didn't follow through with it if you don't know the letters.
No, I got one part of it.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
And then I'm like, man, this is just overwhelming. I had a full-time job.
Yeah, forget it.
And so I just couldn't do both. And then, but the third one is like, and I don't know. And I remember I said, I don't know how this fits.
Yeah.
But it's the third thing, and I think it's a need. It's a huge need, is I want to create funding to pay on people's student loans to go overseas.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how I said it.
No, that's exactly how you said it. So like, pause right there.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy because in that moment, those were the exact same words, like literally word for word in my brain that I was about to share with you.
Yeah.
What you shared with me. It's like you had read my mail and you knew exactly what I was going to ask you, and you like repeated that back to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you messing with me, dude? Like, what's going on here? And what happened then? Did I like come back to you and say, dude,
You did look shocked.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
You kind of stopped and I don't know if there was a "Are you kidding" in there or something, but what I distinctly remember was I drove out here to tell you about my idea to do that.
Yeah.
And I think at that there was, I don't know, I'm getting choked up now. I'm like, sorry. There was a huge weight off my shoulders because I didn't know how to do that. No. And I saw the need and I wanted it to happen, but I didn't have the time or the capacity or probably even the giftings to make that happen. So when you said that, I just like felt this freedom, like, yeah.
You know what's ironic, Brian, is like you had the idea, but not the time. And I had the time.
Yep.
And like you could affirm the idea.
Yeah, you were doing happy crates at the time.
Oh gosh, please don't talk about that. Yeah, I was.
How many? Can we?
Oh man, I didn't think
we
talk
should
about
walk
this.
through that right now.
I prefer that we didn't.
How many businesses did you start?
So
I feel like you.
Yeah, I counted up at one point. So my wife and I got married in 2014.
I love happy crates, by the way.
Yeah, we sold 3.
Should talk about happy crates.
So before starting the organization, now called AIRO, then called the GoFund, I had 26 jobs, like individual separate jobs. And a few of them were businesses that I started. And just to entertain your question, Happy Crate was a company that no one should ever look up online. But basically, it was.
Is it still online?
No, I don't think so. I think I bombed the whole thing.
Happycrate.com?
Oh gosh, no.
Don't go there.
I don't even know what website that is.
Yeah.
It was a photo digitization service where I would show up to people's houses, collect their physical photos, and take them home and scan them. And I remember I bought this like $500 scanner. And I thought...
I didn't realize you bought a scanner.
Oh, I bought a scanner. Literally, I remember sitting down at my desk. I had this huge desk that I got, $500 scanner. It was one of those where you have to pick up the scanner, put one photo in, and put it down.
It didn't feed?
No, it didn't feed because you can't feed photos, right? Because it could mess them up and they're all old and stuff. And so I put the scanner down. I hit start, and by the time it had finished the first scan, like before it finished scanning, I thought to myself, I don't think I can do this. I thought this is not the way, you know? Yeah, I think that's a really good statement and testimony to the fact that I didn't really have that good of ideas. Like I truly had okay ideas, but coming to you and sharing yet another idea and having someone affirm it, just like it lifted the weight off your shoulders because you didn't have to do something you didn't have time for. Yeah. It lifted the weight off my shoulders because I realized, oh, this might work because someone else believes in it. So it's like we both gave each other what we needed.
To be fair, I believed in Happy Crate. I don't know. We just never talked about it, I guess. I really liked the idea. I got a lot of old photos.
I could scan your photos.
My mom would love that company.
Well, I did sell my scanner, but I could buy another one and scan your photos for you someday.
We'll look into that.
Yeah. Man, that meant a lot to me, Brian. Like, I remember reading a book at the time. I think it was called Visioneering. A really, really good book, I think, by Andy Stanley on casting a vision and building a vision. And in the book, he talks about how when you have an idea, you actually don't want to share the idea with too many people early on. It's like, okay, look at this plant, right? Yeah. So an idea
is that real?
Is actually, I think it's real. Yeah, we'll be gentle. Okay. An idea is actually not a plant. An idea is a seed. And you put the seed beneath the dirt. And it's like this. It's like you come to someone and you're like...
He said, I'm going to be nice to this plant.
Yeah, no, I changed my mind. You come to someone and this is how it looks. And you're like, what do you think of my plant? Yeah. And immediately they're like...
Start to pick it apart.
There's nothing there. Yeah. And you're like, no, there's something here because they can't see beneath the surface. Yeah. And so I was really reticent to share my idea with too many people because I was afraid that they wouldn't see what it could become. But when I showed you the seed that I'd put beneath the soil, you actually saw that. Yeah. And you're like, there's something there.
I wanted it. Yeah. I wanted that. Yeah. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. Thank you for affirming me back then and for giving me the confidence to do something that honestly I probably wouldn't have done. I think without that first supporter, that first encourager, most people give up. Yeah. And so, yeah, if you're listening today and someone comes to you and they're asking you what they should do with their idea, assuming there's something there and it's a good fit and good time without being too critical. Sometimes the best thing you can say is, let's do it. You know?
Yeah. Especially if you see we both wanted the same outcome, getting laborers overseas, getting people where the unreached were, getting people out. And we'd have both seen that in our lives. Like you had friends, I was discipling college students, and we saw that hindrance. Yeah. So it was just, how do we fix this? So
I remember we were working together, and I developed like our pitch deck, and I had no idea what I was doing.
You did, yeah.
I really didn't. But developed this pitch deck. I remember it was all black and white. You helped put together the first version. I still have it. And I remember I set 10 meetings. So I drove out to where you live in Riverside, where I went to college. And I met with 10 people in one day. I literally set meetings every hour on the hour, from like 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever. And I asked all of them to give financially. Do you know how many people said yes?
I would guess like 1.
It's actually 0.
0, yeah.
Yeah. So I went 0 for 10. But man, what was crazy is that looking back, I look back on my list every now and then. I believe 8 of those 10 people are now either working for the organization or they become a donor. And so, yeah, kind of like you did with that first affirmation. Like, not everyone sees that, right? A lot of people, I think, saw the soil, not the plant it could become. But over time, like as it started to grow, people said, okay, I see something there.
I get it. I see it, yeah.
So what is it about you that gives you the ability to see what something could become when it's not yet there?
God. I don't know. What do you ask that again? What? Yeah. How can I see what?
Yeah. So I brought something to you, like a truly unbaked idea. And like immediately you saw it. How is it that you were able to see something that very few other people could see at that stage, that early stage of the idea?
No, because I'm thinking through, I won't name any names, but in those first few years, we talked to some influential people. Yeah. And we pitched this, you pitched this to some people. Yeah. And you were told, oh, you should just go overseas yourself. Or you were told, there were a lot of people that said, hey, I get it, but man, I don't know. Built different. I don't know how. I do think that people live in ruts a lot of times, and they have biases that push them to these ruts. And unless you intentionally try to get outside of those and think outside of the box that most people live in, it does make it. I'm, like I said with the Jeep, I'm really risk adverse. Yeah. So it was really hard for me to think. I mean, I had this machine that was, it was lifted. It had, you know what lockers are? I didn't either, but I had them, and apparently that helps you do things. I don't know. They're little switches. I'm like, I don't know what those do. What are these? Yeah. So I could do a lot with this thing, but because I was stuck I drive on roads, I never went off-road with that, even though it was an amazing machine. I think most people live their lives on roads, and they just follow the car in front of them. And it takes intentionality to say, I think I can do this. This is built for this. God has equipped me for this, prepared me for this, and I'm just going to go off-road. It takes intentional effort. It takes faith and hope. And I think it just, takes intentionality. That might be the only word that I could think of that really, really fits. I saw a need, you saw a need, and we just thought, there's got to be a way. Where a lot of people just thought, hey, you're stuck at home with your student loans for the next 10 years, but then you can go. And we're like, it's got to be something different.
We're like, let's flip the rocker switch.
Yeah, what can we do?
We don't know what it does, but let's use it. Yeah, let's see what happens. And I think that's a pretty accurate metaphor for what happened. It's like you and I kind of flipped the rocker switch and went off road and had no idea what we were doing. And ironically, this idea was discussed off road in your Jeep, which is something you didn't know how to do.
It wasn't off road.
Is in like orange grit, like unpaved dirt. It wasn't that.
It was unpaved
pretty flat.
dirt. Yeah.
But it's a start. You got to start
It
somewhere.
was still, there's like a stop sign at the end of it. So it's like, it was on dirt.
Yeah.
We can say it was on dirt.
Okay, so I meet with you. I didn't know what you were going to say. You share my idea back to me as your idea also. We're like, this is crazy. We have the same idea. What's going on here? We start doing this thing together, have some, swings and misses at the beginning, but keep persisting. And then another memory for me is when you and I said, hey, we need to find a beneficiary, right? So if we're going to raise money, pay off student debt for missionaries, we need to find a beneficiary who we can give the money to so they can go overseas. Like we think these people exist. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how they came up, but I think we both had the same idea of David and Emily because we both knew them. So tell us the story, maybe just generally about David and Emily, because you knew them from a different angle, and take us to the dinner table in your house when we talk with them. Can you take us there?
Yeah. So David worked in our office at our campus. I was doing college ministry, and they were really involved in our ministry right at the beginning. It was right when I started there. This is like 15 years ago, 2008. So I don't know if that's 15. 2008. We'll just say that. So they were just really faithful people. I think that's one of the best words I could use to describe them. And so they would hear and then apply, hear and apply. And so as we taught, and my wife really invested in Emily, and I invested in David, and we just saw growth and growth and growth. And David was always pointed to ministry of some type. And in his mind, it was pastoral work. Emily was invested in ministry. I think there was a moment, though, and maybe not a moment, but a movement as David heard about. We talked about the unreached and the needs here and the needs overseas. And there was a moment when he realized I could leverage my life in a greater way for the sake of the nations if I went and lived among the unreached. So we saw that progression in their life. They stuck around to do a few years of ministry, and so they did college ministry for a couple years, and got more training and just more investment, more rooted in their church. But we both knew them, and we both knew that their direction was obviously overseas. And so they had started, I don't know if they started the application process before we talked to them with their
I don't think we had one yet.
They may have.
You mean the application process to be a missionary?
Yeah, I don't know if they had started that or where they were in the process, but we just knew they were headed in that direction. And we also knew them. I knew they had a ton of debt.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to be a while. Something was going to have to happen for them to get overseas.
Yeah. I remember, so before we had the conversation with them, this literally just came to mind. I don't think I've ever told you this part of the story. So somewhere between, the Jeep conversation and the orange groves with the stop signs, and you and I sitting down with them and, asking them if they would, be our first beneficiaries of student debt repayment. There was a conversation in the middle where I'd been striking out. I'd asked people to support it. A lot of people were saying no. Yeah. And I want to believe I had real thick skin back then, but, man, I was discouraged. Yeah. Like, I think I got pretty easily discouraged because I so believed in this. And when I shared it with people. It just
made sense.
It just made sense to me and to you. But to other people, they're like, wow, you found the two most awkward things, missions and student debt, and you're combining them to fundraise. Like, that's a terrible idea. Yeah. And so I remember actually driving to David's house, or to their apartment, David and Emily. And Calvin was basically just a baby. And I remember sharing with them, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing, the student debt repayment thing, but I'm not sure that it's going to work. And I really want to do something in missions that matters. So, man, what if instead of doing that, I just follow your track and I go overseas to the unreached. Can you tell me how you did that and how I can do the same thing? Because I think I was about ready to start exploring that and maybe give up the Go Fund at the time. And I'll never forget how David responded to me. Have I told you this?
No.
So, context, I was going through like a midlife crisis at 23. It was like a quarter life crisis. Yeah. I think I wore a leather jacket. I was riding a motorcycle. I rode my motorcycle to their place. I was trying to figure out life.
Was it it was like a burgundy leather.
It probably was.
It wasn't like leather.
It wasn't a nice jacket.
No, it was nice for some context.
For a 23-year-old. Yeah. So I remember riding to his house, asked him how to do this thing, how I could become a missionary. And David, in a way that only he can do, he puts both of his hands on my head.
Yeah, he would do that.
And he like kind of pulls me close to him and he says, Luke, he's like, I beg you not to go overseas. Yeah, I beg you not to go overseas. He says, God has something for you to do here. And Emily and I are both so sure of it that we want to ask you as a friend that you would not go overseas. Because if you stay here and you help people like us get overseas, we think you'll do more for the kingdom here than you ever would over there. Mm-hmm. And he said, and I would not say that to most people.
Yeah. And I would agree with that that's rare to... Yeah. He wouldn't say that to most people. No. I wouldn't say that to most people. Yeah. But, yeah, he saw it. I could see that happening. I could see him doing that.
And that was a turning point for me. And not that, going overseas is less valuable. I think they're the same. They're of similar value. But it was a question of how has God wired me? How has God wired him? How has God wired other people? Like, where could we offer maximum value for the kingdom? Yeah, yeah. And he saw something that even I couldn't see at that time. And I think maybe without that, I probably would have given up. So there's like a few give up moments.
Did that happen before we met?
I think it was Orange Groves. Then it was David and Emily's apartment.
Can we call it David grabbing your head?
Yeah, David grabbed my head moment. Yeah. And my heart. Moment. It's like it's like God was grabbing my heart through David and saying, "Don't give up. There's something here." So fast forward, some point later, you and I sit down with David and Emily at your kitchen table. And you remember that?
Yeah.
Conversation?
You prepared another slide?
Yeah, probably.
Deck? Is that what you're calling it?
I have a lot of slide decks.
Yeah. So you prepared another one just for them. Yeah. Which we had already talked about it with them to some degree, or to a large degree. Like we had processed this. So on my side, I'll just say this. I thought, why is this? Like, why are we doing this?
Probably a bit overly formal.
But this is what I appreciate about you is you are very intentional and thorough. We'll say thorough. And so you wanted to make sure that they knew this was a real thing instead of just a couple friends talking about something.
Which is ironic because we didn't have any money.
Yeah.
This is a real thing. We don't have any money.
We don't know who's supporting it. But you had this full plan slide deck. And so it was at my table. And you walked through this slide deck at a kitchen table or a dining room table. Right in front of him. Yeah. Just walked him through it.
Remember what we asked him?
No.
We're like, would you be basically like the poster child, like the first people that we partner with to pay your student debt? And I think I recall them actually asking us if we had any money, and we had to honestly tell them no, like we actually have $0.00. But we think we could go find some money if you guys say, like, it's chicken and egg. Like we need you first.
We needed somebody. Yeah. We needed a face. Yeah. I think that's what made it real for a lot of people. Yeah. Because they had someone who was actually a face that needed people that needed something. I do remember the response though, which again, I thought we talked about it already. But it was a very like solemn like response where they said yes, like, and they you could see the reverence that they had, that man, this is going to be something that unlocks the door for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they cried. Maybe I cried.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. A lot of people cried. I don't know.
Well, I feel like that whole experiment culminated to this high point on May 15th, 2015, when we had our very first vision dinner, where your brother-in-law, Claude, he spoke. He talked about this bow and arrow metaphor where, no arrow ever got sent without a bow.
Yeah.
Right? Every missionary needs a sender. And David and Emily got on stage as one of the 3 missionaries we featured that night.
Yep.
Again, at this point, we'd raised like $0 for missionaries. Yeah. It was do or die that night. I think we spent $12,000 on the dinner. So it was like a lot of money considering we had no revenue.
Right.
And 200 people in the audience, and David gets on stage and he reads this letter. And I found out later, by the way, not to embarrass him, but David actually has a reading disability. Or I think it's like a processing disability with words. So like if he's reading something out loud, he can't do it. So he told me this later, he memorized every single word of the letter.
He would do that.
And it was like probably 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred words. And the letter was from a tribal chief in Papua New Guinea who was writing to the United States asking for a God man.
Yeah.
Or a missionary, what we would call a missionary, because they still don't know what happens to their elderly when they die.
Yeah, the organization that he's with, so they have people on the field there, and other tribes will hear, oh, there's these people who know about who God is, or whatever their word for God is. And so, yeah, he had some of those testimonies or those letters that they had basically begged, please send us somebody. Yeah. And there's still people, there's still groups like that right now that are saying, please send us someone.
Yeah. I'll never forget a couple of the lines in that letter as he's reading it. Again, he's looking at a piece of paper and he's just doing it from memory, but the 200 people in the audience are just locked in.
Yeah.
Like you could not hear, or you could hear a pin drop in that room, looking around the room, like people are just leaning in, choking up. And there's one line in this letter toward the end where the chief was writing and said, why would you not send somebody to us? Are we rotten meat that you would not send someone to tell us about what happens to us when we die? And I remember that always stuck with me, like rotten meat. Like in his culture where the metaphors are agricultural, like that's got to be possibly the worst thing.
Yeah.
Like rotten meat.
Something of value that has no value anymore.
That's it. And it was just following him reading that letter, I think God used to just move the hearts of people to cast a big vision that were like, all right, can you give money? And it was like the best timing.
Well, people realized,
people bought in.
I think they realized, oh, they're really willing to go. They're really willing to do something that they did care about. People do care about seeing the nations reached with the gospel. Yeah. There's a lot of people that want to see that happen. And so when they realized David and Emily will go, all they need is just a few people to start supporting them with just, I could be a part of releasing them to go. Yeah. I think at that point they were working through training. They might have even been close to finishing their training. Yeah. They had no other things holding them back except the student loan debt. Yeah. And so when we just presented, and when David declared his need, you just said, here, you can be a part of this, then it made sense to people. Because it was the plant was
the plant was
there.
Blooming. Yeah. So that night we paid $12,000 for the dinner for 200 people. Which, by the way, I don't know how we fed everyone. Like it was 8 years ago, so it was a lot cheaper back then. But that night, people gave $90,000. Yeah. And literally, we committed that night 100% of everything given tonight will pay student debt for these 3 missionaries. And what's pretty cool is that David and Emily, they've now spent like 7 years on the field. We're almost done paying their student debt. It takes about 10 years to pay it off. they're almost finished. Like that tribe now
They have the gospel now.
they have the gospel. There's the
It's
first
happened.
believers. It's
Yeah.
literally happened.
Yeah.
So connect the conversation in the Jeep to a people group who now has the gospel in their language. Like, talk about the connection between those two and like how potentially unlikely it looked at that point to see this point today.
I don't see it as unlikely. There was one thing that we were trying to remove. We already had people wanting to go. There was just one thing. Like, I don't see it as a big, monumental, like, it's just, hey, let's galvanize for this one thing. Let's just make people aware of this one thing. And so once that burden was clarified, and you did an amazing job helping people understand this, and then there were so many other people that jumped in, and as the plant was blooming or growing, you have Claude sharing the you probably remember it more than me, but at that night he just said, there's arrows ready to be shot. You could be the bow. And the only thing holding it, we just need a bigger bow to shoot a bigger arrow. And so people saw this growing plant and said, Apollos watered, Paul planted. God gives the increase. I don't know if that's backwards. God gives the increase, right? Yeah. Claude starts watering. You planted. You've got David watering, and other people are just jumping in at that point. I don't know. I don't see it as a big leap from the Jeep. Yeah. Bars. I don't see it as a big jump, right? It's just this is so clearly a burden to so many people. It holds back so many people. So why wouldn't we use our resources to be a part of this? Once we had a visible representation, it's over.
So it was almost more like a chain. It was like a long chain that started when David and Emily were born.
Snowball.
When you and I were born, like all the people that influence them were born. And it's like this whole chain was connecting, and there was this one link in the middle that was just unlinked.
Well, even before the vision dinner, you enlisted people, you invited people to be table hosts, and they invited that. So you had people trusting you, but starting to catch the vision and trusting you enough to say, okay, I'll invite people and I'll put a little bit of money down now. I don't think it would have covered everything, but those people were part of the chain too. Oh, yeah. Like it was just this growing snowball.
They were first movers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which a movement doesn't happen without that.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So why was it important that they were involved? Like, obviously, besides the momentum and the first mover, so obviously David and Emily, they were critical, and it's easy to talk about them because it's so easy to track what God has done through them. But what about the other 200 people who were there that night? Like, why was it important for them that they were involved in something like this?
Here's my perspective on it. It validated as a legitimate thing. And so here's what I mean by that. How old were you at the time? You were
like 23.
Yeah, you were young. So to most people, you were a kid. Yeah, you really were. I did college ministry. People don't name famous college ministers. That's just not a thing. Like you're not. You got John Piper.
Not
and
yet.
Then not right.
Yet. Growth mindset.
So there's no you look at a guy doing college ministry, and we're not following him to the ends of the earth. Is a 23-year-old kid. Like we're not. It's not a real organization. It's cute what you guys are doing. It's really cute. Yeah. But when you have business leaders in the community, when you have pillars of a church, when you have pastors of churches that people look to and respect, saying this is something that we see value in, now it's valid. And now people can say, this isn't a cute thing that these guys are doing. This is a real, legitimate, valid organization that's going to remove a barrier and just send people like crazy overseas. Yeah. So it was that validation, I think, that was huge.
Yeah, I love that. So what would you say to someone who's, say, a business leader and they're working their day job, maybe doing well in their career, and they would say, hey, I'm not a missionary, or I'm not a campus minister, and I don't have an idea to start a nonprofit for missions or whatever. Like, what would you say to them when it comes to them making an impact globally?
Yeah. People don't necessarily need ideas. I think I appreciated the people who were able to think outside the box enough to say, well, I'll start contributing to this. I don't know what it's going to look like. But, and not just money, like all the people that were table hosts, they leveraged their relational capital. They were inviting people into something that they didn't even know was existing. So to be able to look and see, okay, it's hard for me to see what this plant's going to look like. I know there's a seed in there. It's hard for me to see, but I'm gonna try to think about, okay, this could be something cool, and now I'm gonna leverage my resources for the sake of this to help this grow. Man, there's so many ways to be a part of movements. It's not just starting, and I mean, by all means, if there's a barrier, if there's a problem that you can think of a solution for, by all means, go for it. But if you see someone who's doing that, they need just as much help as the initial mover. It's crucial to have those people that come alongside and say, I'll volunteer, I'll help, I'll jump in.
Yeah. I've heard it said before that the Great Commission is for every believer in every age and every stage. Like, there's a role for everyone to play, and the missionary is not like more valuable in God's economy than the person who's sending, or the first mover who goes to a dinner and writes a check, or the lady who's in her closet praying for missionaries every day. Like, there's a role for everyone to play. Some just get more visibility than others.
Sure.
You know, so yeah, I appreciate Brian as a co-founder of AIRO for believing in me, believing in the idea, the crazy, weird idea 10 plus years ago, and excited for, what else God's going to do through other people who have those Orange Grove slightly off-road Jeep conversations.
I just want to clarify, it was my idea because I said it first. So
I'm going to give you that credit. I think it was...
you snooze, you lose.
You snooze, you lose. I forget which president it was, but one of the presidents said, it's incredible how much you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. Yeah. And I feel like both you and I had that attitude early on. We're like,
this is a need.
I don't care.
It's a need. Let's just make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because we had worked with a lot of different organizations and peoples. Yeah. And I think at any point, if somebody would have said, hey, can we take this and run with it? We would have leveraged anything that we could have. Yeah. If we saw a different way. Yeah. Yeah. But no one did.
No one did. No one's knocking on our door at that point. But okay, fast fire questions.
Okay.
Favorite pair of shoes?
Oh, I like Red Wings.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Red Wing boots. Okay, if you had $10,000 to go on vacation, just you and your wife, you had to spend all of it, where would you go?
What's a vacation? Can you tell me
kids.
What those are?
If it's with kids, it's a trip.
I've heard of these things.
You haven't gone on one in a while.
Yeah.
That's why I'm giving you $10,000 figuratively to go on a vacation.
Oh, with my wife?
Yeah, just you and Jen.
I have no idea. I'd probably have to ask her first. So, I don't know, mountainy things like Colorado, Wyoming, not Wyoming. I don't know, Yellowstone.
Yeah. Nice.
I think I would like to do that. She might like the beach, so we'd probably end up on the beach.
Nice. Yeah. Have you been to Yellowstone?
Yeah.
Yellowstone's awesome. Okay, last time you were scared?
Last time I was scared. I live without fear. Last time I was scared. I don't know. My sink just backed up. I'm kind of scared about
scary.
that. Yeah,
either that
last night.
Or probably working on your VW thing in your garage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I tried to do something to it once.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more. So I should have had these written down and just do it off the top of my head.
Fast fire.
Yeah. Fast fire.
You have to fast fire.
What's like your number one go-to lunch? If you like go out to lunch somewhere, number one go-to lunch.
Oh, if I'm going out to lunch,
Yeah.
where am I?
You're
Am I
here.
in Riverside?
You're in Riverside. Where do you go and what do you get?
Like, is this of obligation? Like, because I mean, there's convenience lunch, but then there's like, if I really want to go somewhere.
Yeah. Anywhere.
I mean, you can get street tacos from anywhere, or a California burrito.
Yeah.
With the fries.
So for those not in California, what is a California
Yeah,
burrito?
no, that's a good question. Because I grew up in Oklahoma, and so when you say California, it's like you put bean sprouts on something. That's literally what they think. I don't know, because I guess Californians eat bean sprouts on everything.
Can't remember the last time. I don't even know what a bean sprout is. So I'm not gonna lie.
So, no, California burrito is like really, I think what makes it California burrito is fries in the burrito.
Yeah.
So it's like carne asada. It's just a loaded burrito, and then you've got a ton of just awesome fries.
Yeah, it's the best. And usually guac too, guacamole, right?
Yeah.
By the way, guacamole is not the same in the Midwest. It's not the same.
It's a little different.
It's a little different.
Yeah, it's a little different.
I think I had guacamole or avocado in Kentucky once at a hotel, and I almost passed out. Yeah,
They probably made it from a powder.
yeah, it's probably an MRE.
Yeah.
Avocado
I
MRE.
think so.
Yeah. So, Brian, last thing, tell us just briefly about what you do and how people can connect with you.
Oh, I don't know. I do college ministry. I'm at Elder Redeemer Baptist Church. I make disciples. If you want to connect, I don't know why you would want to connect with me. I'm on social. I got socials. I don't really do much on them. You should connect with AIRO. Do that. But yeah, I'm on socials at Zuniga. And that's all.
Yeah. I love what you do, Brian. What you do is simple but eternally meaningful as you disciple college students. You discipled me in college. Man, I know there's many who were before me and even more who are after me who are living for the cause of Christ because of your investment. So thanks for the way you believed in me and for doing it for others. Thanks
for doing it, for taking things and continue to be a learner and passing it on. Fist bump.